Hello, everyone. My name is Gilda Ross. I'm the Glenn Bard Director of the GPS Parent Series. I am thrilled about this conversation today and thrilled that you could join us. These are two of my favorite authors, and I can't wait for this conversation to take place. We're going to be looking at these fabulous books by Susan Cain, who's going to be in conversation with fabulous and important psychologist Scott Barry Kaufman. And this is an event that you will want to share with others, as are all of the programming for the GPS Parent Series. Everyone is always welcome here. That's our ask of you, to let family, friends, colleagues know. No registration, never any cost, thanks to the family foundations who support GPS. We're all about navigating healthy families and helping communities thrive. Again, thank you for your presence today. This is our community read, which is always a special event as far as I'm concerned. And again, thank you so much. This is what's upcoming in the GPS Parent Series for the next couple of weeks. First up next week, we'll be welcoming back Jessica Leahy. Jessica has been with us many times. Her book is The Gift of Failure. That was the first book. And now she's back to talk about a very important topic to her, to all of us, the addiction inoculation. She wanted to ensure that her own family members, her children, would not suffer from the family disease of alcoholism. And she writes very honestly about her own addiction. And it's a program you won't want to miss on the 25th at noon and 7 p.m. And the following week, another returning guest is Dr. Ross Green. He'll be talking about his book, which was truly a groundbreaking book called The Explosive Child: How to Understand Frustrated and Inflexible Children. That is on Thursday, September 30th at noon at 7 p.m. When we go into October, we'll be welcoming for the first time Judson Brewer, talking about The Craving Mind. He'll be discussing both of his books, including Unwinding Anxiety, The Craving Mind, Breaking the Cycle of Worry and Bad Habits. That is on Tuesday, October 7th, noon and 7 p.m. And then we'll just mention one more, a good conversation to have these days with Ken Wallace in conversation with Jason Klein. Why before where? Career planning for the next generation on the 9th of October. You'll want to look at the website. It's our 30th year of GPS. We're so glad that you could be with us. Check it out. Find the programs that speak to you and share.
Do
Oh,
we want to answer any questions?
Why don't let's take some student questions and then come back. Okay. Take a little, a
I
short
love
break for
that.
that.
sounds good.
Does that sound okay?
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
that.
Okay. So I'm going to introduce you to Ezra. Ezra, there you are. I found Ezra in the library. Elizabeth Fleming, the librarian at Glenbard West, introduced me to him, sitting at a table, reading a book. And then he stood up, a tall young man. And Elizabeth said, this is your gentleman who's read the book and has a question. So Ezra, take it away.
Well, Ms. Cain, Dr. Kaufman, thank you very much.
Hi,
This
Ezra.
conversation, nice to meet you both. This conversation has been super insightful, and your book really attracted me as an introvert to kind of see how I could change my own perception of my personality. And I loved that point you made that we don't necessarily have to change how we are to fit into maybe more social settings. It's all just about learning little skills
Mhm.
to grow and maybe uh, seek some more high achievement in a world of extroverts.
Mhm.
What do you think us introverts miss out on if we don't develop those skills and we find ourselves kind of lagging in a position behind the extroverted culture?
Well, it's really, in terms of what you might be missing out on, it depends on who you are and what your goals are. Um, and I'm basing the following thing on the work of the personality psychologist Brian Little, who talks about the importance for every human of figuring out what are your core personal projects in this life. What do you most want to do? Like, who are the people you want to serve? What are the causes you want to serve? What is the work that you want to do? What matters most to you? And then you figure out, in the service of those core personal projects, what are the skills that I need to achieve them? So it depends on what each person's core personal project is and what that personal project requires. Um, but for example, I mean, I'll just kind of give you my own example of, I used to be a corporate lawyer, which was something that I was just doing to pay the bills before I became a writer. And I alluded to this earlier that I had always had a huge problem with public speaking. It was incredibly painful for me to the point that if I had to do any public speaking, I would lose 5 pounds because I couldn't eat for a week beforehand. So during all the years I was a corporate lawyer, I just kind of gritted my teeth through it and suffered during the times where I had to speak publicly. Okay, but then I switched to becoming a writer, and my first book was Quiet, and I knew that I had, in order to be able to get the ideas of Quiet out there, the way the world works, I had to be able to also publicly speak. Like, you can no longer just be a writer writing from a mountaintop. You really have to be out there. Um, and so that's when I figured out how to overcome my fear of public speaking. And we can talk in a minute about how to do that because I know so many people share that fear. Um, if I hadn't done that, I can guarantee, your question was, what do we miss out on by not doing these things? I can guarantee you we would not be speaking right now. And I don't only mean, because I wouldn't want to be here behind a microphone. I mean that you wouldn't have heard of the book. Part of the reason you've heard of the book is because I gave a TED talk, which I was terrified of doing and worked like a maniac to be able to pull off. Now, having said that, I don't think that 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 overcoming that particular fear or mastering public speaking is important for everybody. It actually happens to be important for a lot of different goals nowadays, but it kind of depends on what your goals are. And so I think that's the first step of figuring out what are they, and doing that evaluation kind of every year, because especially for the ages that, how old did you say you're 17, or did
Yes,
I make
ma'am.
that up? Yeah. So you're 17, your core personal projects are going to change when you're 18 and 19 and 20. So keep asking yourself that question. And so, yeah, again, my formula is like, you, be the best you can be, draw on the strengths that come naturally to you, and go outside your comfort zone when you need to in the service of your personal core projects.
That brings me a lot of clarity. Thank you very much, Ms.
You're so welcome.
And a minute ago, you talked about, and is there, we don't want this to be use your top 10 things to do, but, but we know, and Susie has written this in the chat too, what she's pointing out is, she's here like so many parents because we want to help our introverted children, because certainly in these years, it can be more challenging than in later years as we become reaching the goals that we seek. For her, she's saying she's encouraging perhaps her child, introvert, to make friends with extroverts because that helps bring him out. But what specific things do you want us to know, those parents of introverted children?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. Okay, so first of all, your child might be introverted, your child might be shy. Those are two different things, and I talk about both of them. Introversion is more about kind of the preference for quieter, less overstimulating environments, generally the preference to interact with one or two people at a time instead of a big group, that kind of thing. Shyness is about the excessive fear of social judgment, which a lot of people have. A lot of children have that feeling. The advice I'm about to give tends to apply to both quiet and shy children, which is new settings, doing something new, any novelty tends to be difficult for quieter or shy kids. And an example I often give is learning how to swim. So let's say you have a child who is uncomfortable learning how to swim, they're uncomfortable getting in the water, uncomfortable with the pool, and you as the parent you're probably looking around and you're like, oh my gosh, like all of my child's peers are just happily jumping in and splashing around. And what did I do wrong that my child doesn't want to do this? Okay, the answer to that challenge and to all the challenges that are like it is, first of all, no one did anything wrong. And second of all, the way to handle those kinds of fear-induced novelty is to expose your child in small, loving settings to the thing that they're afraid of. So if we're talking about the pool, you want to show up at the pool at, let's say, every few days. You pick a time of the day when it's going to be super quiet. It's just the two of you, and all your child has to do, let's say, is dip a toe into the water, and then you celebrate and you go for ice cream and you're done. And you come back a few days later and maybe they put a knee in to the water, and it's like little by little by little, and you're celebrating every step of the way. And you're, most important, you're subtly communicating to them that you're totally with them. Like I often say, shyer kids have a longer runway before they take off and fly. They want to know, they need to know that you're with them on that runway and that you think they're super cool on that runway and you're not finding any fault with them. And the proper attitude, aside from, do this, do that, the proper attitude is, this is no big deal. The proper attitude is matter of fact. And, and you might want to share with them, if this is true of you, you might want to say, oh yeah, I often feel kind of shy too when I'm in such and such setting, and here's how I handle it. And it's no big deal that you feel that way. Many people do. We're just going to figure out some strategies to help you get through this time. So let's say the child is afraid to go to a party or uncomfortable at parties. You might say, oh yeah, I know you're getting that feeling again. Okay, let's talk about what we can do. Why don't we get to the party a little bit early? And why don't we go with your best friend, Jamie? And because I know you always have fun with Jamie. Whatever the thing is, you're just talking about it in a way that doesn't draw too little attention to it. It's just part of life. No big deal. So that's one big strategy.
Let's take Alyssa's question now, Liza's question.
Sorry, can I just offer one or two more? Because there's
Please.
just so much
what? I
to
was
say.
hoping
Is
you
that
would.
okay?
I was
okay.
hoping you would. Oh,
Okay.
Eliza's here for the hour. So
But I definitely
ahead.
want to hear your question, Eliza. Okay. So I would also look for the passion areas in your child's life. We tend to think that the route to, how do you say this? That self-confidence comes first, and it's self-confidence that gives us mastery. But it's often the other way around. It's often you develop mastery in a particular area, and that gives you self-confidence. So look for the things that your child is truly passionate about, help them gain mastery. They're also most likely to gain friendships in areas that they're passionate about, because there are going to be other kids there who are passionate about the same thing that they are. So it could be soccer, it could be painting, it could be music, doesn't matter what it is. And also you want to know that there, even in the things they're passionate about, there are going to come times when they're like, oh, I don't want to go. And maybe they'll be crying. I really don't want to go. And they're crying about it. And it's very hard as the parent to know whether that's something you should be honoring. Like, are they telling you this is wrong for me? Or are they, or is this a teaching moment of how to get through momentary discomfort? And this is an art and it's not a science, but I would say if the tears or the reluctance are coming in a place, in a domain that they usually enjoy, like let's say they love soccer, but on this day they're crying because they don't want to go out onto the field, give them that gentle nudge and let them know, you know what you got to do at this time. I understand how you feel. You do need to go. Let's see how you feel when you're done. Okay, another important tip for parents is to make sure you are creating quiet zones for your child. We take it for granted that kids go to school all day from early in the morning until they get home at 3 or 4 or whatever time. But that's like an incredibly high packed, high stimulation day for many humans and especially for introverts. So it is natural for your introverted child that they're going to want to come home and chill out afterwards and that they need that time. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. It is the most natural thing in the world. So look for spaces where they can have time to themselves or time with a favorite friend or whatever it is that restores your child to their personal equilibrium. That's how to think of it. Like the school day is probably going to get even the most socially comfortable kid out of equilibrium, and you want to help them restore it. Okay, another tip. Um, teaching your child how to stand up for themselves by role playing it with them. So, or and I say stand up for yourselves, whatever the situation is. Like maybe they have trouble speaking up in class. You can role play that at home. You can have them practice at home what it's like to raise your hand and say something. You can also encourage them before a class to prepare, let's say, one question that they're going to ask when they get to the class the next day, and to practice raising their hand at home and asking that question. And by the way, a tip that I always give children and adults, if you're the kind of person who's uncomfortable speaking up in groups, it's often helpful to give yourself a push to speak up early, because then other people start directing positive energy towards you because you've spoken and contributed, and they're making eye contact with you, they're smiling at you, and it's kind of a virtuous circle starts, and you're actually that much more likely to want to contribute after that. I want to make sure we have time for Eliza, so I'm going to give one more tip. This one for teachers. And teachers listening, I'm sure you actually know this already, but I'll just reiterate it. The concept of think, pair, share, which is if you present, let's say, a question to the class and you have the kids first think about it silently to themselves, then break up just into one-on-one pairs to talk about it, and only then do the kids share out with the class. And you end up hearing from a lot more kids by going through that process, because the quieter kids have time to process and they have time to practice saying their thoughts out loud to just one other person, which is easier than saying them to a whole classroom.
I'm so glad that you stopped me from going to the question. Really great. Really great. Eliza, you are up.
Hi. Thank you, Miss Cain and Dr. Kaufman, for the conversation. Miss Cain, your book really took all my feelings and thoughts into really beautiful writing. Because I feel like in school, there's always like a pressure to be loud and to always have like something to say. But I think your book really pushed me to see my introvertedness as like a strength rather than a weakness. And my question is, how can I and other students recognize and help all introverted kids to find acceptance and feel more welcome at school?
Oh my gosh, that's such a thoughtful question. So first of all, Eliza, thank you so much for putting yourself out there to ask this question, and you had to like wait the whole hour to do it, and thank you so much. And in terms of what you can do for other fellow introverted kids, you can actually, if you're so inclined, start a club. That's something that we've seen kids do before. We even have materials for it, quiet power clubs. Um, we've found that whenever people within schools or companies decide to open up a group discussion about this topic, there are always a lot of people who show up because so many people silently feel this way. So you might just say, like, call a meeting in school if you have the means to do that in your school, and say, today we're gonna, I don't know what, watch a TED talk about introversion, or talk about such and such topic, and just see who comes and what the discussion is. And I bet you it would end up feeling very empowering. So that's the first thing I would say. But then the second, just kind of in a more everyday type of way, if you look out for other people who you think might be feeling some of the things that you felt, and look out for them in moments when they might feel more uncertain, it will make you feel great, and it'll make them feel great too. So I would just look for those moments and for those people. One of the things that I've noticed over the years is that very often introverted people can come across as unfriendly. So when you see, the next time you see a fellow student who you think is unfriendly, ask yourself twice, wait a minute, maybe that person is just introverted, and see what happens when you talk to them. And
Thank
I love that question so much, Eliza. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I have to say, one of my favorite quotes of yours, Susan, is how some kids shine under a Broadway finish this. Tell me the
Oh
quote.
gosh, Broadway Spotlight. Yeah.
Broadway spotlight. And go ahead, finish it.
Oh, and I wish I remembered it exactly, but it's something that
Some shine.
everyone shines in different lighting. So for some people, it's a Broadway spotlight, and for some people, it's a desk lamp. So much of the key to life, even beyond this question of introversion, extroversion, so much of the key to life is figuring out which lighting do you shine in, and then designing a life where you can be in your lighting, in your spot as much as possible. And I will say, for kids who are listening today, or for their teachers, like, it's a lot harder to do that when you're in school, though you still can do it by joining the right clubs for you and taking the right classes for you and all that kind of thing. But the older you get, when you get to college and beyond, the more and more you can very mindfully design the life that suits you. And people will often give you the wrong metrics, right? So people will think, well, how can I get into the very best college, or the most prestigious job, or whatever it is? But the question we really should be asking is, where's the place where I can find my tribe? Where's the place that my way of being is going to thrive? Because that's really what makes you happy at the end of the day.
Well, where is the place where my way of being will thrive? That's really what we try to do here too. That's why you were our community read. Scott, I'm going to turn it back over to you for some concluding remarks.
I want to conclude by saying I was taking extensive notes as Susan was giving her advice. So I learned just as much today.
Can you turn up your volume?
Is this better? Is this
Yes,
better?
thank you.
You got the psychology podcast microphone right now.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
All I wanted to say is I was taking furiously writing notes as Susan was giving her advice, because this applies to adults as well as children. I just want to thank you, Susan, so much for blessing us with your great wisdom today, and empowering us to be ourselves in our own light. I think Abraham Maslow would have appreciated that.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who is here listening to us today and with us today and caring about this subject. Thank you to SBK for being one of the great thinkers of our time and lending us your hour. And thank you, Gilda, for your presence in making this program so wonderful. It's been really wonderful to work with you over these years.
I'm amazed every time we have you come. The thank you notes clog up the chat. And they all say the same thing. Susan Cain changed my life. And Scott, you told us what year that book came out. That's a hell of a lot of people. And what a thrill, and what a special honor to have you here today as a community read in conversation with the amazing SBK, who does the very same thing, changing lives all the time. And before the tears come, we'll just say goodbye.
And I want to also just do a special shout out to Ezra and Eliza too. I loved both of your questions, and you were awesome.
Thank you so much. Thank you.